Let's get to it. Today, first lecture. How about that? You and I both get to learn something. Claire Christensen's The Innovator's Dilemma. Have you read it? Have you listened to it? Have you gone through it twice? You know, today we're going to cover just a couple pieces of it. Navigating disruption from dilemma to digital mastery. By now, you should know you don't have to be a great technologist or pure technologist to be an innovator. Innovation is far more about the business case, understanding the change culture within your organization, the market, and what is moving, what is not moving, much more than understanding which AI tool does what. So as we move along here, I want to make sure we cover a few key things to get you set up for success. Still focused on making sure you know what it takes to get an A. So we'll go through a few parts in this lecture. We'll get started, yes. I'll tell you some stories or whatever. I'm really excited about going and digging into a major success story and failure story. We learn so much from failures. And we're going to dig into those a little bit. We're going to talk about some business principles that we learned from Claire Christensen. Maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about why I'm doing this myself. I'm pretty busy as it is, adding this to my repertoire, building a whole new course, and working with students I've never met before last Saturday. Well, that's a conscious choice. So let's get started. First off, buffalo grass. You remember the story from last Saturday? Javier, my well-thinking but not so discovery-minded neighbor, planted buffalo grass, which was so tough it just kept crawling and it took over my lawn. Even today, as I prepare my lawn for the winter, it is causing me issues. But that buffalo grass wasn't just a project fail. It was kind of a wake up to how innovation demands clarity and good discovery, or it can literally wither your soul, just like the grass. A couple reminders about me. I I enjoy innovation for sure, and we'll get to the heart of that in a second. I've done a lot of things in M&A, digital transformation with Boeing Corporation, five-time entrepreneur, founder. Now I help a lot of founders, insurance carriers, banks, other companies with strategy. I call it strategy, but you know what it really is. It's really digging into innovation. So I get to take what I do every day and apply it into this and help you to become a piece of that. If you do that and you show that throughout the course of these modules we have together, you'll do very well. 222 EMBA executives, professors, staff, welcome again to EMBA 808, 809, excuse me. This hybrid sprint equips you to weave tech into business models, processes, designs, value, and edge. But first, expectation, because transformation starts with your grit. Some of you already contacted me. I know some of you already have some grit. To earn an A, let's dive deep. Over the next really 6 weeks, you're going to put 45 hours in, 3 hours a week on prep and study. Those elemental items like pitches that seem like they're going to be easy for you, they will not be easy for anyone. They are difficult. They're almost incredible to master. Second, this is asynchronous, readings early, engage, intensives, not passive. Diagnose your org's pains, pitch boldly. If you skim, you'll miss the rebirth. You'll commit. A bit like Pixar rewrites, iterative and honest, but we'll get to Pixar later. Those key assignments, we got the November 13th coming up. You're going to have the intake form, already working on that. Now, the intake form is about your culture's change capability. I want this to be as real as possible. I don't want you making up fantasy stories, pretend you're in a different role. This is you for real. We're going to be very much applied in this course. Your 60-second pitch, that we're going to get you started on that, so get it done. November 24th is the quiz and the DMAP. December 6th, that capstone team pitch. December 13th, your final pitch. Some reflections. I'll be grading all that by December 18th. And then we'll enjoy a great holiday season. Not together, apart, because I want to be, in my own space. I think That's best, don't you think? These aren't boxes to check. They are your transformation lab. Approach this as if you just stepped into the accelerator, but you don't know what you're going to be working on yet. We're going to get there. This first week is key. The elevator pitch rubric. I'm going to model some pitches for you today. In fact, if you listen closely, you're going to hear precise examples of how to blast through that A grade and beyond with pitches. Clear problem and circumstance statements, results under circumstances per Christensen. The rubric, of course, concise, compelling, pain and solution, credible, data backed. Speaking of Christensen, let's unpack the dilemma, the blueprint for why good firms falter. Remember, he said this was birthed from two specific questions. What was the first? It's really about sustainable success, but a way to reverse that, and he does this very well. Why do good firms falter? And we see this theory that really divides out true management theory from innovation theory. So when you think about what you do all the time, are you more management, are you more innovation? It's very good to know. You define that, then you know what to adjust to be fully prepared for this course. Uh, why do giants like Kodak crumble? Every one of us. I've seen you in class. I know the generations we have. We all know who Kodak was. They chase sustaining tech, better for current customers, but miss true disruptors, cheaper, simpler, low in markets. I adore innovation myself because it's like personal change. There's this perfect alignment between the change culture and innovation that occurs in an enterprise organization and in you. So take this on as a personal challenge. That transformation requires what? Well, of course, to disrupt our habits, just like life disrupts us. But frankly, internal transformation, usually there's an outside impetus. And there's something far deeper than just the physical ramifications, the technical, clinical look at a use case. It is deep. It is grinding. It is tough. I believe all growth requires pain. I want to help you avoid as much of the pain I've experienced as possible. Bank on my failures. They've now saved me from burnout, which you need to be saved from as well, going through this course, working full time, being with your families. So let's talk about key principles. These are going to be so fun. These key principles, they are a real part of what we're trying to do. Why do titans tumble? Good management dooms, sustaining tech for loyal customers, blind disruptors, yeah, all the stuff. First off, disruptive versus sustaining. Disruptive often is a niche start. There's a different part of the market you're going after. You might have in a bell curve, a distribution. You're going to want to understand what distributions are for this class. In a distribution or bell curve, you have what's in the middle, and then you have those fringes. What are they called? The deviations. Yeah, often that's where true disruptive innovation starts. Why? Because it's a part of the market that's not being addressed, whether it's an underserved part of the market or a truly new part of the market created by the innovation. I think about it this way. We all go on business trips, and you might stay at a Marriott or a Hilton. But at one point, certain people in hospitality created a whole new market for extended stay hotels. One of them was a mentor of mine. That was a new part of the market. That was not something that people actually had before. It was new. And guess what? It's now every major hotel chain has their own piece of extended stay because that part of the market is here to stay. My innovative passion is to disrupt habits, and I do that for myself. One way I do that personally is a 72-hour water fast. I know it sounds amazing, doesn't it? Like stop eating all food for 72 hours and just go about your normal life. I personally struggle with a little bit of a blood sugar issue on occasion. So at the end of the afternoon, if I've exercised and worked and all that, and I haven't eaten enough, I just fade. My mind fades. I slow down. It just grinds to a halt. I was worried that would happen with a 72-hour water fast. So I did it over a weekend the first time I did it. And guess what? That didn't happen. I didn't slow down as far as physically lose momentum. What happened was my clarity got so much better and my focus. That was a disruptive habit. Some of you that exercise a lot, you know you can't just train the muscle like the chest muscle the same way all the time, expect it to always grow. You have to change up and make it guess. You have to keep doing things to change how it is. So that's how disruptive is. Sustaining is incremental. The beauty of sustaining is that it is how you continue to grow a business. Great analogy from the book, right? If you have an $8 million revenue company, you can go do disruptive things in the market all the time and possibly increase your revenue by 20, 30%. But if you have a $40 billion company, you want to increase it by 20% or $800 million. You can't just play around in disruptive technology and innovation all the time. You have to actually do the things incrementally in the market to build more of your current market base. You're in the middle of that bell curve and you're going to stay there. Just add a little piece here and there, deepen the revenue, verticalize, however it is that your market works. Principle number 1, disruptive versus sustaining. Principle 2, resource dependence. That's right. That is tied to our current voices. 3, small markets ignore growth hunger. 4, capabilities lock in values and processes and spin off for new. It's just like changing our own circles so we avoid stagnation. And number 5, that's 5, tech overshoots demand. This is one thing I work with on the startup side. So many people want to engineer a product and make it perfect. I have a client right now expanding from Canada into the US market. And they want to dig in to their own product. They have an incredible product, by the way. You can look them up, Quick Facts. They're in the insurance space, and they've done an incredible job. They own 80% of the Canadian market for taking product guides, appetites, basically all the clinical type long PDF documentation that brokers have to sift through. And here's a broker who's an expert on, let's say, commercial oil, and here's someone who's an expert on wood, or expert on parts of residential property. And so they're looking up saying, hey, I need the expert to help me with this. The Quick Facts is able to slice and dice that information down so that you can apply search capabilities and AI, and you can instantly be an expert on those different types, comparing products from all the different carriers and understand what's going on. What they're doing now is they want to go and spend a big investment on their products to make it more efficient to bring in all this information, which is great. But they also have a certain limitations in the market side in the US and how they're growing into the US. The question is, innovation-wise, is this disruptive step something they should do while still a startup that's scaling, or should they just continue to scale incrementally? Tough questions to figure out. Oftentimes, startups, QuickFacts isn't doing this, but many startups outpace their market with products. It's the old adage, if you build it, they will come. But guess what? Most of the time, if you build something, they don't come. They don't know what it is, where it is, why it is. You have to describe all of that. And all those pieces on this end are a bookend to what we do now, which is that basic elevator pitch of talking about the problem statement and circumstance. So guess what? Let's talk about that pitch model just a bit. Under privacy fears and demand voids, Glass chased AR wow, but missed user pain. The result was a $1.5 billion flop. We're only 13, 14 minutes into this lecture, and by now you should know how to do a pitch. Here's another one. Under CGI doubts and character flats, Pixar pursued consistent stories. Result, emotional dynasties via iterations. Two of my favorite use cases. I've got lots of these. We're going to dig into these quite a bit right now. Let me pull it up here. Okay, hold on. Professor's got to align his windows to make sure. Okay, yeah. What do you want first? You want the success, the failure? What do you want to do? Okay, how about the failure first? I'm kind of a bad news, good news type of person. So yeah, we're gonna do. No, I'll tell you what. Let's do success first. Let's talk about success. Go back to that pitch I just gave. Right. Pixar. Pixar is an image of the power of consistency in a world addicted to breakthroughs. Interesting. Before Toy Story made cinematic history in 1995. By the way, pause. Toy Story is 30 years old. Are you kidding me? Wow. Pixar was mostly known in one of two Americas: elite animation circles or Silicon Valley in their nerdy corners. The company, founded in part out of a spin out from Lucasfilm and propped up by Steve Jobs, had some animators, some code writers, a few scattered demos, and enough stress to dim even the brightest pixel. If you were around back then, backstage, not front row, you wouldn't have seen legend. You'd have seen labs with mismatched chairs. You'd see teams, leads working overtime to fix render crashes. You would have watched John Lasseter pacing, tugged loose from storyboarding marathons, debating with Ed Catmull about why the leads in Toy Story weren't likable, even after the 17th rewrite. Did you know how many rewrites Toy Story had? Well, we're going to find out. Nothing at Pixar felt inevitable. Not in the early 90s. Not when they still weren't sure they had a viable story, studio, or working business model. It was all in flux. Before you get uncomfortable, things work out. Let's just hang in there. Here's the crucial thing: they didn't win because they had better ideas. You're about to learn something really critical about innovation, disruptive innovation. They won because they stayed at it longer with unwavering process, ruthless honesty, and sacred clarity on roles and pattern. In other words, Pixar's story is not about disruption, it's about something more rare: consistency. Yeah, who would have thought that the world of innovation lives on consistency? Ed Catmull was not flashy, the anti-showman, a PhD in computer graphics, whose sentences came out wrapped in reflection, not volume. But he had one unshakable belief: creative excellence without structural discipline dies in its second act. So from day zero, Catmull insisted on something creative companies almost never enforce: process guide rails. Every film would have a director empowered to own the vision. Every department would be charged with surfacing hard truths. And at regular touchscreen, transparent intervals, a team called the Brain Trust would gather, not to override the director, but to challenge them with candor too uncomfortable for most organizations to stomach. The beauty of a new organization, by the way, even a startup, is that you get to do things fresh the right way. Most of us don't live in that world. We don't live in an ideal world of doing things the right way, the ideal way, the way we want to do it. So when you think about innovation, don't let the current guide rails slow you down for where you work. Don't let your organization's change capability or lack thereof get in the way for what we're doing in this course. We will eventually circle back to how to change the change capability of your culture. That's what we're doing the intake form early on. Let's get back to Pixar. Pete Docter, the deeply human animator who later gave us Inside Out and Soul, quietly became the torchbearer for iterative integrity. Often soft spoken, he would script and rescript until emotional truth won out over clever plot. He didn't tolerate rewrites so much as he treated them like breathing. He was constantly living rewrites. Lasseter, the extroverted spark plug who could sketch a hero faster than some producers could type his name, was the heart of movement, energy, joy, laughter, and the binder of the group. He needed structure. He knew it. Ed gave it to him. Inside the studio, rooms were democratically messy. Pinned up animation stills on the wall, post-it note arguments frozen in time, and always someone, animator, producer, or lead, asking the most dangerous question in any successful creative company: are we sure we're still solving the right problem? Toy Story rewrote history, but it nearly didn't. Original cuts had Woody written as a sarcastic, mean-spirited character, and Buzz never had depth. Audiences in early screenings winced. Some execs worried this was $30 million down a very charming drain. What did Pixar do? They gave up and walked away. No, actually, they didn't. They took the critique, all of it. No spin meetings, no PR theater, just retreat and rework. The team went offline for weeks, rebuilt Act 1, rewrote every line that flinched, then brought it back honestly, carefully, for another Brain Trust pass. Same with A Bug's Life, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Wally. All of them struggled in draft number 3, number 7, number 9. In lesser studios, directors panic and double down. What is that? That's ego, by the way. Ego is the enemy of true innovation. At Pixar, they're taught and expected to break it down, not throw it away. But in terms of digital transformation, they diagnosed what component was broken, reset feedback loops, and accepted only data-backed alignment before moving forward. I'm going to say that again. They diagnosed what component was broken, reset feedback loops, and accepted only data-backed alignment before moving forward. There's your ideal process. No one was protected from challenge, and that's precisely why they could take it. What did this structure really look like? Here we go, 5 things. Every film went through a defined sequence: research, concept, treatment, story reel, brain trust review, lock reel, production, dailies review, iteration, postmortem. Every creative lead had a documented charter, their ownership zone, the decisions they controlled, the areas where they'd be challenged but not overruled. Number 3, brain trusts had rules too. No defensiveness. There's an ego thing going on. No solution mandates, no ego maneuvers. Feedback had to describe the problem, not dictate the solution. How many times do you approach a situation trying to push a solution? Number 4, feedback was ongoing, not episodic. Storyboards were reviewed weekly, animation loops daily. Directors built in calendar rhythms to debrief the team emotionally, not just logistically. That was a complete shift from how studios worked. And always, number 5, always the postmortem. Every film, successes and embarrassments alike, were formalized, documented, and added to the organizational muscle memory. This mistake won't happen again. It was not an aspirational line, it was a practice. Pixar wasn't charismatic, it was consistent. And that in time made them untouchable. Yes, they drove innovation. This is one thing you will learn about innovation. The idea, the circumstance, a problem statement of something that we want to change is often just the kernel of the real change that happens around it. And successful digital transformation occurs when we can implement it. Pixar is the image of successfully implementing change. The result was disrupting the entire entertainment industry and becoming their own market. Incredible. By the time Finding Nemo and The Incredibles made Pixar a gold mine, there were advisors begging them to scale, faster timelines, more scripts, spin-offs, merchandise first production calendars. But those within, especially Catmull, held the line. We move when the story is ready, not when the market is. They weren't stubborn, they were strict. To break process, even for the opportunity, risked rot. That's what makes Pixar's method holy ground for digital transformation leaders. They prove that process is not the enemy of creativity, it's the caretaker. What separated Pixar from other studios was never the polish, it was the commitment to ask at every step, have we defined what great looks like? Who owns the decision? Who's allowed to challenge them? When and how do we stop, get honest, and adjust? Iteration wasn't a delay, it was the work. And it applied to humans too. When Lasseter later stepped down and creative leads rotated and reassigned, the system held. Not because structures replace people, but because your people thrive when process protects the value. There's a myth that Pixar was lightning caught in a bottle, that Toy Story emerged from bravado, that Finding Nemo came from a single inspired mind. But the truth is more powerful and more transferable. Pixar succeeded because they baked clarity into everything, because they defined process depth before they defined composition. Most of all, because they believed in consistency over charisma, iteration over individual epiphany. Let's apply digital transformation to Pixar. 1. Start with role clarity and protect creative ownership. Every film at Pixar had an identified director with absolute authority on final cuts, but with full transparency about who else had feedback rights, veto protection, and output accountability. This model honors both autonomy and challenge. In teams, the same principle avoids political guessing and surges decision trust. When I step into an organization, role clarity is the first thing I address. Not even the problem or situation or circumstance, so much as setting this structure up for success. Number two, build cultural feedback loops and stick to them. There's a startup I work with that has a weekly feedback loop with actual customers and with customer subject matter experts and stakeholders. And so they have basically from cradle to grave the entire setup of their business that could have to adapt and change based on this feedback. And they are completely open books, no ego in sight. It is run by one of the customers. They don't even run it. They don't even have to like command and control to shift this to this agenda. Well, let's focus on this piece first, or let's start with good news at least, or something. No, the whole thing could run to rot, but it doesn't. Very interesting. Pixar's brain trust wasn't just a good idea, it was a calendared meeting with behavioral rules and enforcement rituals. Every organization needs embedded rhythms where candor is both structurally permitted and behaviorally expected. Number three, reinforce process over personality. Pixar thrived across different characters, Lasseter, Stanton, Bird, Doctor, because their methods weren't dependent on one genius. What they had was a system that protected ideas and people from the entropy of success. Digital transformation insists on building systems that outperform individual charisma. Why is this noted and important? Many managers who try to affect change often fall into the model of a genius with 1,000 helpers from Jim Collins' book Good to Great. And the genius is the one that thinks they have the right idea and that they're going to push it forward. Sometimes there's a lot of charisma involved. WeWork is a great example of this. Charisma at the top, but rot underneath. That is not sustaining. Number four, make iterative strategic, not just creative. Every Pixar film passed through creative gates, validated by both narrative content and team alignment. The takeaway, have measurable product health, have measurable project health indicators, not just performance KPIs, and revisit them at embedded decision gates. Number five, scale only what structure can support. Pixar turned down speed to protect quality. By the way, speed in this case meant a lot more revenue, probably higher pay and bonuses for leadership there. They turned down money and promotions in a way to protect quality. They measured readiness by internal signal, not external hype. For business leaders, that means delaying launch when feedback is misaligned and building depth instead of chasing applause. Truly, servant leadership, leave your ego at the door is required. Those five again, start with role clarity, build cultural feedback loops, reinforce process over personality, make iterative strategic, and scale only what structure can support. Championship teams aren't built with vision alone. They're built with relentless, repeatable rhythm. Pixar didn't win with magic. They won and kept winning because they did the hard thing right again and again, even when it wasn't cool, fast, or easy. When we take clarity seriously enough to protect it from charisma, what felt improbable becomes sustainable and great. That's what digital transformation does best, and what leaders in any field must strive for if they want to matter long after the first big win fades. That is our use case for Pixar. Now, I could say you should study this more by sitting your kids down and having them revisit the first Toy Story or Finding Nemo or even current successes from Pixar and judge for yourself if that sustained success is continuing to prioritize quality over speed, revenue, and the things that go along with it. But I will challenge you with this. Oftentimes, it is the things that we do or don't do. It's the things that we want so badly and passionately to happen that can't, as long as we so badly and passionately push it. Pixar leaders were very, very, they're very wise to continue their sustained success with the consistency they brought to the table. There's your success. Now, let's go back to where we're at before we get to Google Glass, which is also one of my favorite things to talk about. The pitch: under CGI doubts and character flats, Pixar pursued consistent stories, result with emotional dynasties via iterations. Make more sense now? Early 90s, scrappy lags, render crashes. The crisis: Woody was jerkish. Offline rewrites, brain trust, problem only, no ego, postmortems, eternal. A little bit punchy, but I'm going to tell you, that's what makes these things work. All right, let's talk about Google Glass. I'll make this one a little shorter after some coffee here because I think that the understanding how success works well is good, and contrasting that to a model of failure doesn't require quite as much depth. Because there's such an alignment between personal transformation and corporate or digital transformation. I will emphasize that still in the story. To understand the rise and unraveling of Google Glass, you have to feel the privilege and pressure of the early 2010s at Mountain View. It was an era where every lunch line held a Nobel laureate or a viral coding prodigy. And the Googleplex seemed less a campus than the unlocked attic of the world's imagination. It was the center of the world. In 2011, inside Building 44, Sergey Brin had become restless. Success with search wasn't enough. Android was rising, and Sergey, recently adrift in his personal life, yearned for another mountain to climb. Project not just to headline TechCrunch, but to inspire Google in the mythic ledger of history. He developed a taste for disruption, ambition souring when it plateaued. Babak Parvitz, meanwhile, engineered in shadows, soft-spoken, precise. Parvitz was obsessed with optics, humble about hype. His desk was a testament to curiosity: screwdrivers, refractive lenses, notes scribbled in the margins of research journal, and a digital clock stuttering toward midnight. If Sergey was the evangelist, Parvitz was the whisperer, equally skeptical and enchanted, hungry for breakthroughs, but wary of promises outpacing facts. The two found their what if internet-connected eyewear lively and wildly unfinished. In late-night brainstorms fueled by jazz records and Google's bottomless snack bar, they sketched, wired, resketched, and theorized. Could we turn looking into knowing? Would anyone want to live with data always in their line of sight? The answer in the echo chamber of ambition was, of course, but not for whom exactly. As 2012 unfurled, the idea mutated into Project Glass, and the XKCD comics doodled on the whiteboard seemed only slightly less plausible than reality. Google's X division, already home to driverless cars and balloon internet, became Glass's home. It was a clubhouse of makers, dreamers, and misfits. Sounds pretty good to me, actually. Titles changed by the hour. Job boundaries were as blurry as the prototype camera's resolution. There's that role issue. Early momentum was intoxicating. The campus buzzed. Google's going cyborg. Internal wikis blossomed with use cases. Excuse me. Surgeons with sterile hands could record procedures. Parents could narrate children's first steps. Urban explorers could live stream graffiti in real time. Marketing's vision boards glowed with fashion icons and hip cafes. But as energy swelled, discipline ebbed. The most basic of questions: what user problem do we solve, and what is good enough? Found no consensus. Customer, stakeholder, even decision owner. Every role existed, but none was absolute. Babak pushed for developer prototypes. Build small for the tinkers, get feedback, iterate. Sergey, emboldened by his rock star status and an increasing need for personal wins, wanted spectacle. Ted is calling. Who's ready to fly these out of a plane? Monday stand-ups turned into theater. Engineers, still bruised from late night soldiering, watched as anxious PMs presented PowerPoint after PowerPoint. Slides asked, are we a consumer product or a business tool? Nobody ever nailed it down. On good days, loud optimism won the room. On bad days, personality from responsibility for any one metric or deadline drift and anxiety metastasized. So we had roles blurry. Now we have charisma in the room full of ego. Testing was ambitious but ambiguous. Sergey danced around the edges of meetings, bright-eyed, asking, "Wouldn't it be cool if?" Questions that founders love but managers dread. Parveets defaulted to technical desensification, losing himself deeper in specs and wiring as the vision grew less clear. Behind closed doors, Ivy Ross, Glass's design whisperer, built empathy like armor. She hosted walking meetings, handed stones to dress stressed out teammates, anything to ground conversations that were suddenly adrift. She knew, only as creatives do, that confusion is as perilous as conflict. July 2012, the TED demo prep swelled to code red. The device worked, sort of, but only if you held your head still, prayed to the Wi-Fi gods, and didn't mind a few scorch marks on your temple. The world didn't see the panic behind the scenes. Observers gasped as skydivers streamed video, and Sergey, beaming, declared a new era. A lot of bravado there. Success of a kind birthed new urgency. Media blitzed. Sun and Glass was not just a dev kit, but a symbol of future cool. PR, smelling glory, wanted influencers on board, then fashion, then public safety. Product managers brooding over their coffee traded side-eyed glances. Could any device serve surgeons in the OR? Foodies on Instagram and architects designing blueprints all at the same time? Deliveries became launches. Glass Explorers bought into the dream at $1,500 a pair. You probably have 5 in your closet right now. They smiled for the cameras while Google quietly firefighted. Camera bugs, voice recognition failures, and battery life complaints mounted. Urban users found themselves shouted at on trains. Bars banned glasses. Glass hole went viral, first as a joke, then as market reality. Internally, the team fractured, exhaustion compounded by ambiguity. Ownership was hydra-headed. One developer described meetings as musical chairs in the dark. Still, designers doggedly believed in a fashion coup, even as low battery indicators blinked their dissent. Leadership swelled, then churned. Tom Chi, a prototyping wizard and Parva's early collaborator, departed after bracing disputes about purpose. Ivy and a growing cadre of cultural caretakers tried keeping it at peace that innovation never guaranteed. Meetings multiplied, rhythm evaporated. Every pain point, privacy, overheating, staggering cost, became a fix, not a feature. Sprints sprinted nowhere. Strategy vacillated from mass consumer play to maybe we just pitch this to surgeons, to what if luxury brands embraced it. Sergey himself faded from daily ops, personal storms swirling. Rumors ticked through corridors, divorce, burnout, existential doubts. Some evenings he'd vanish for yoga, others he'd pace the labs, demanding bolder pivots through barely veiled frustration. Are you in pain yet? Are you wondering, is this story ever going to get end? It just keeps getting worse. I hear all these terms that I feel in my own, at each moment requiring a stop and diagnose. Google Glass did the opposite, pushed harder, pivoted faster, spread thinner. No one declared timeout. Where does user feedback actually say this fits? Who now owns the true pain point? Linear process, define the problem, test, review, assign clear roles for the next step, was sacrificed in the name of velocity. Meetings devolved into status reports and existential group therapy. Dissent simmered, but in Google's optimism culture, direct confrontation rarely bloomed. By late 2014, 3 years later, Tony Fadell arrived. He'd fixed iPods and thermostats. Surely he could fix leadership, but the structure resisted. The center had drifted too far. What remained was not product fit, but a mosaic of abandoned ambitions. Ego and personality and charisma had ridden so hard for 3 years, it was now its own inertial obstacle. Fidell's postmortems noted the two essential lacks: user problem clarity and a single linchpin decision maker who could say not yet or even no. Closure arrived not as a bang, but as a series of quiet, sorrow-tinged announcements. January 2015, a strategic alignment memo circled. The last unofficial all hands was somber. Sergey, a shadow of his enthusiastic self, thanked everyone. Ivy managed gentle words about growth. Harvey visited, dropped off a box of old prototypes before heading to Amazon. His farewell email is brief and dignified as anyone who's learned more from failure than success. The artifacts of glass gather dust in Mountain View, but its core lesson echoes through every project, planning deck, and every founder's dream. Solve a real problem, define who owns that decision. Step forward one gate at a time, never skip no matter the pressure. Glass died not from lack of vision, but from fog on the path to clarity. 5 quick lessons. 1, start with real pain. Glass imagined demand, it didn't prove it. It was the ultimate, if we build it, they will come, not knowing if anyone wanted to wear glasses, additional glasses, glasses they didn't have to wear, glasses they weren't wearing anymore because they had contacts in. Always begin with relentless validated user pain, not technological what ifs. Number 2, linear over lurching. Have the team move gate by gate, problem, design, test, feedback, pivot. They could have failed smarter, faster, or even found success. Each phase needs a fully accountable leader, not a committee. 3, role clarity is not optional. Every hand and every pot killed velocity and learning. Designate decision makers, backstops, owners, and abide by the lines. 4, integration is courage. Feedback, especially when unwelcome, must not be just tolerated, but institutionalized in the process. Meetings that report but never intervene will breed confusion, not clarity. 5, the audacity to quit. Digital transformation means knowing when to end the chase, harvesting lessons, not regrets, building the next effort on firmer ground. Glass's dignified fade out, while costly, was an act of overdue discipline. The true legacy of Google Glass is not a punchline, but a masterclass on what happens when vision runs unchecked by clarity in rugged pursuit of innovation. The biggest leap is sometimes the one back to fundamentals, discipline, and the courage to solve for why before you ever pitch the world on wow. Only then does the future actually come into focus. While Google Glass is certainly a use case to learn from failure, it also reminds us of so much dysfunction we deal with in the corporate world. So, speaking to my students here, when you are dealing with a large or small team and there's a lack of role clarity, there's a lack of consistency and ability to iterate and implement what's going on today, the idea of bringing in digital transformation and innovation, change, real change, that's daunting because you don't have the fundamental pieces there to do what you do today. The fact is, the motion created by digital transformation often builds those critical pieces of change capability that the company as a whole benefits from, because now it is getting this fresh look at how a more ideal, structured, iterative, consistent approach can be built for all of their product lines. Number 2, as we go through digital transformation for executives, you're going to learn and realize in your own world and all the others that the lack of change capability is not really about digital transformation. It's about the effectiveness of the overall enterprise organization. You're also going to learn that when we look at the pieces, whether it's the ego-driven behaviors of Google Glass or the incredibly disciplined non-ego-driven behaviors of Pixar, and an entertainment company to boot, you're going to see how roles carry far more weight in the success of digital transformation than anything else. And knowing the right roles. You're going to learn how when you usher in an idea, even a what if or wow, that starts at the business case and the business operations people. That starts with the business line. When we transform pieces of the Boeing Corporation, it wasn't because something looked cool while we were out snowboarding one night or surfing the next morning. No, it was because the business unit needed that to happen, and they knew how it was going to happen and fit into their overall operations. And though growth is pain, change can be painful, the way we put it together allowed them to continue a consistent iterative process, whether they were originally consistent or not. These are all key critical concepts for what happens Back to Google Glass. Ready? Under privacy fears and demand voids, Glass chased AR wow but missed user pain, resulting in a $1.5 billion flop. No core problem. Pivoting was wild, consumer to surgeon. You can't chase all the geese on the bank of a river and expect to catch one. All right, we've gone through setting expectations yet again, looking at a couple of critical use cases, talked about 5 principles in the first part of The Innovator's Dilemma, Claire Christensen's book and a key piece of this course. To wrap up this lecture, let's talk about the lessons we've learned from these use cases and apply them into Claire Christensen. First off, Google Glass, the lesson is guardrails free and feedback breathes. Always. Like the cycle of grace I mentioned, forgive drafts, learn and let go, and keep moving and moving and moving, growing your foundation of learning. Lessons from Pixar. Lessons from Google Glass. Define pain. Have linear gates and clarity. Compassion calculus. Sergey, the top guy, the top person in that organization, it's personal challenges and individual burnout create an even larger lack of clarity. We support the humans in our organization, or the vision will crumble, no matter what lovely type of integration or innovation you're doing. Christensen warns, we disrupt wisely. Glass forgot that. Pixar embodied it. Your tools, these principles with grace and compassion, will give you quite a ride. You're ready for the 13th? We're going to talk a little bit about Christensen's principles, about this lecture. We're going to actually go around the Zoom a little bit when it comes to the forums of the intake form answers you've given. Give everyone a chance to look into and share a little bit, because while we're giving our own individual world and taste into this course, very applied, part of that applied means we get to experience everyone else's a bit as well, particularly those in our own team, which will have some team breakout sessions. But the big surprise, and if you watch this far, you'll find out, the big surprise is that we're going to have an expert panel start our class session Thursday. And the expert panel is going to talk a little bit about a tool and a way to turn innovation into KPIs, measurables really quickly, and really watch it come to life. Because I don't know about you, excuse me, when it comes to innovation, I want to understand the impact and where this is really going. And I don't want to spend days or weeks working with my team to lay all that out. Just like I don't want to spend days pulling a PowerPoint together and other things. This is real. This is what we do. I'm David with EMBA 809, Digital Transformation for Executives. I hope you've enjoyed this lecture. I look forward to seeing you next Thursday.